And so you're a college consultant, is that right? An independent college consultant, or?
I am. I mean, the technical term is independent educational consultant because not all the kids I work with are
Sure.
going to choose college, right?
Right.
It's sort of life after high school and what's right for them.
How did you get into that line of work? Where did you?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's sort of a sideways path as careers are for many, many people.
Yeah.
Uh, I was a double major in college in drama and sociology.
Mhm.
And after college, I worked in the theater world for about 3 years. My degree was in directing. So I ran educational theater companies that
Cool.
toured schools. And then I decided that wasn't a very stable income.
Yeah.
And I got into advertising, and I spent 14 years in advertising, followed by another 12 years in marketing.
Huh.
And
Okay.
when I was working in marketing, part of my job is I was a magazine editor.
Huh.
And while I was a magazine editor, people started asking me if I would edit their kids' college essays.
Huh.
So I started doing that for fun, and I absolutely loved it.
That's cool.
And so I thought, wow, this is kind of better than my regular gig.
Yeah.
But I realized that many kids were not applying to appropriate schools. And you could write a great essay, but if it wasn't the right place for you, wasn't going to, either you weren't going to get in or it wasn't going to end up being a happy.
You feel like doing it by rote, or just like doing it because they're applying because they thought they should, or because their parents went there, or something like that?
I think that, people oftentimes are drawn to name brands that don't match up with like their personal priorities.
Right.
They're not thinking through their personal priorities well enough to realize that.
Yeah.
So I decided to go back and get my graduate training in college counseling, which I did. And then I was doing my corporate job full time and my college counseling part time for 6 years. And then the last 10 years, I've been a full time educational consultant.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, happiest career I've ever had.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and I get to learn about cool places like wayfinding, which I don't know if you know this story, but I actually came on a tour of wayfinding with a group of college consultants from the Portland area because as part of our continuing education, we try to learn about places with which we're not familiar.
Right.
So I came on a tour of wayfinding, in my professional capacity.
Huh.
And then when I saw it afterwards, I wasn't thinking at all about my own daughter coming there. But she and I had been talking about walking the Camino together.
Yeah.
And I learned when I was on my tour there that you take community members sometimes to walk the Camino. So I sent Jesse an email right away saying, hey, check out this place. We could go with them one April and walk the Camino.
Yeah.
And she didn't tell, she just said thanks, but she didn't tell me that she read about you and thought it sounded cool and then came for a personal visit. She just called me one day and said, hey, I decided to apply to Wayfinding Academy. Can you look over my application?
So in terms of, your own educational experience, what was that? Where are you from? What was that like for you?
But I was the type of kid that traditional schooling worked just fine for me. It was extremely, I've always been a rule follower. And so having rules and expectations laid out and just, putting one step in front of the other and doing what I was supposed to do and understanding what I needed to do to please teachers and get good grades, it just worked for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got to college I realized that some of my love of learning had been diminished by being focused on grades instead of having a little freer path to explore the threads of what interested me. I was successful in a traditional environment, and so I didn't really have to think about it more. But during the time that I was in college, I paid for my own schooling, partially by working as a preschool teacher and partially by working as a middle school religious teacher. And during those experiences, I figured out really fast that there are lots of kids for whom the traditional system doesn't work at all.
How was Jesse's early experience with education?
She was pretty much unschooled in Guatemala uh, during part of the time when she lived in an orphanage. They put kids on a bus and sent them to school, but she doesn't have any memory of that, and she hadn't learned anything. The deficits of early learning for Jessie were like hugely apparent, and I don't have a lot of respect for the traditional school system in that they did not understand what was going on, and they told us that she just wasn't really very smart. And we knew, like, hey, I've worked with kids pretty much my whole life. We knew Jessie was amazing and smart, but not in ways that they knew how to measure.
That's right.
And I really never was very fond of the way that schools measured kids' achievement, because what makes sense to me is to measure against progress. We need to give people credit and support for their efforts and for their achievement. And so I don't think either she or I ever thought that college would be something she chose. So, of course, I was really delighted when she told me she wanted to apply to Wayfinding, and I believed before she came, and I believe even way more strongly now that she's finished pretty much her first year experience, that it's the exact right place for her and the way she learns. And the growth that I have seen in a year is phenomenal. Like, I can't even, like, it's so exponential. And she has back a confidence. I can't even say back, because she has confidence at a level that she never had before.
Yeah.
Confidence in her ideas, confidence in speaking up, confidence in listening to someone else, and rather than reacting to, like, I'll see her all the time taking notes, and then 2 days later, she'll send me something that says, remember when you said blah, blah, blah? I didn't really think that was right, but I didn't want to speak up without checking. And then she'll send me sources that show me that what I said was accurate or not accurate or whatever.
Yeah.
Or if she makes a point and we challenge her, she'll send us the sources that she used to develop her understanding.
Yeah.
That's not something she had any idea how to do before Wayfinding. So it's pretty phenomenal, not just as a parent, but, you know, my husband always used to say that, you know, you're successful as a parent if you would like your children as friends, even if they weren't your own children. Right? And so I can say that I would want Jessie to be my friend, even if she wasn't my kid.
Well, that's cool. Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool testament.
Yeah. She's very neat. She's very, yeah. She's just, I've always enjoyed my interactions with Jessie, and yeah, just really you can tell that it's like just one of the most active listeners that I think I've met at Wayfinding. Really, really good at being super present when you're talking, which is pretty rare these days, to be honest. Especially as, you know, as we're developing generations that are so distracted by technology, and we're all battling that, obviously. But I just noticed that I think that stands out a lot for me when I talk to Jessie. Is just there doesn't seem to be that need to, like, looking at other places or checking in with other things, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, cool. Well, so in your discussions with Jessie, what does she find the most valuable at Wayfinding? What really resonates with her in terms of, like, yeah, I'm always curious to hear what that is, whether it's just a community of like-minded peers or if it's any specific, specifics.
I would say it's a combination of things. She very much enjoys being in a community of people who all learn differently and respect each other's different ways of learning.
Yeah.
She really has connected with her, I don't know if you call them professors or teachers, but like
Yeah.
the people leading the classwork who are so passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
Like she has liked every single teacher she's had, which I definitely can't say about my college experience.
Right.
I like
There's
some
doozies in there, yeah, right.
not so much. Can't wait till this one's over. So before Jessie came to Wayfinding, she never once touched a piece of video equipment. She never like made a little selfie thing and posted it on YouTube, like none of that stuff. And the very first workshop that she took, or lab, I think you call them, that she took there was like documentary filmmaking. Yeah. And she made a very beautiful movie about my mom, who's 85 years old. And like,
I met your mom. Yeah.
Yeah, really yeah. To have. So I think she enjoys being able to demonstrate what she learns in various ways. I also think that because she's a little bit older than some of the people in her cohort, and she's in some ways by some people looked up to as a leader.
Absolutely.
And that's not an experience she had in any of her other schooling. And it's not really an experience she's had in the work world.
Yeah. So
I think she has some nice natural leadership skills that never got to be used or tested. And I think she's getting an opportunity for that at Wayfinding that she might not articulate, but that we see.
So just to close it up, if you don't have any, that's fine. But just, do you have any, because you give advice all day long probably for your job, but is there, general advice that you give to parents or mentors who are, or especially maybe right now in this, in the COVID era, like who are trying to figure out how best to help their young adult children kind of navigate their next steps?
So I have a pretty unpopular opinion amongst my clientele. And my unpopular opinion is parents should not pay $75,000 for their kid to go for 1 year to a name brand school that's online. Like, I don't care if you got into Stanford, why would, if your experience is online, I don't believe that Stanford was better than OSU because of the professors.
Right.
If it was better than OSU, it was because of your peer group. It was because of the people you were surrounded by and their energy. So if you're not surrounded by those people, what are you paying for?
Yeah.
So I've encouraged many of my clients to consider a gap year.
Yeah.
And I think that small places like Wayfinding that still can have an option for people to be together live are number one at an advantage, but number two are just a really smart choice for some families to consider over the next few years. And the other thing I would say, like advice to families is, you're working backwards if you just try to get a list of schools. Like, working in the right direction means that you as a student, even at age 16 or 17 or 18, do some self-reflection. And that you are able to say super clearly, what do you want to get out of your education? Because other than a degree followed by a good job, which isn't a good answer. But no, honestly, that's what most high school kids say to me.
I'm sure.
Well, I want to get a degree and a good job that makes me enough money to live comfortably.
Yeah.
Okay. let's say that that's a given for everybody, and that any school in the world could theoretically do that for you. If you set that aside, so wayfinding is pretty clear about what it delivers. And if a kid wants what you have, then that's really perfect.